So welcome, Carolyn Vincent, my dear friend of many years and past neighbour. I was so excited to have you on the podcast today, Finding the You in Mum, because when I was much younger, a young mum, in fact, I don't know if I'd met you beforehand, but I became very aware of you in the neighbourhood when you door knocked and then followed up with a letterbox drop, inviting the neighbourhood to an event. You'd hired a hall in the middle of the suburb and invited everyone to gather with the idea of trying to bring people together. I attended and was so moved by your efforts and how effective it was in getting the neighbourhood interested in each other, and a few other memories. A mother's group, a book club, a gardening group, a cycling group, a few social events that regularly happened like River Fire was born out of that gathering. For me personally, I found it life-changing because I joined the book club and I joined the mother's group, which was really helpful at that point because that was when I had had my fifth child and was a little unsteady on my feet because it wasn't where I thought my life was going to be at that point. So firstly, thank you for doing that. Some great friendships have been born out of it as well. But to add to, I guess, your life legacy right now, what other things would you like to share?
Most important thing is that I'm now, as a result of that first project, which came out of my own desperation to make new friends and build a support network for myself, I discovered that there were many other people in the same boat as I was. And I also discovered I had a bit of a skill for doing that for some reason, maybe because I grew up in India and I saw my parents and grandparents do it. So it was kind of in my psyche, and I realized how passionate I was about building community, and it's my passion, it's my purpose, it's what keeps me alive. It's everything I would love to do for the rest of my life.
I know that you've since moved suburb, and I'm imagining you've done a similar thing. I know that home is quite spectacular in that it's very environmental. You've invited people in the area to think outside the square around building a home.
Yes, absolutely. The front of my home, there's an area called the Pocket Park. In fact, on Neighbour Day this year, it's designed so that there's no fence. It's designed so that there's people walking past can interact with me and I can interact with them, but people can just walk in, and we have neighbour gatherings over there. There's 2 benches created, and it's
on your yard.
Yes, on my front yard.
That's amazing, especially in a world where we seem to be like these silos.
Yes.
And we pull into our garage, which automatically, we don't have to get out the car anymore. We slide our car in, it closes, and now we're in our little vortex.
Yeah.
And it feels like it isolates us, obviously, from that interaction that happens organically. That's quite phenomenal, and I don't think a lot of people would even consider that as an idea.
Thank you. Thanks for the acknowledgement. But when I was searching for a property, my main concern was, how can I have neighbour gatherings? What's the space I can use that I can bring people together in my front yard, not inside my home? That's your sanctum, your family space.
Yes.
But where can I have it in a public enough space, but that's close to me, that I don't have to do too much effort? And it was my front yard. And anyone can do that, which is why I wanted to inspire others to do that as well.
Absolutely. So. And from memory, your place where you previously lived didn't lend itself to that.
No, it didn't. It was on a main road.
Driveway. Yeah. And even to go to visit by foot, it'd be like, I'm going to haul myself
you
up
need
that
walking
hill.
sticks.
Yeah, it kept us fit.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful that you identified that desire and you've been able to actualize it. And do you get a lot of people popping in?
Oh, absolutely, because my garden was created by an eco-architect, and it's a very admired garden in Maruka. So if I'm feeling lonely or I want to interact with somebody, which I don't that much, but if I'm in the front yard, always there's somebody who stops by and has a chat and admires the garden, and it's a way of interacting.
All right, let's kick off with the questions. So you've selected 10 very interesting questions. I'd like to ask everybody just to briefly describe your journey to becoming a mum. Like, was it something that you'd planned, or is there an interesting story behind the pregnancy or the arrival of your firstborn?
No, there was no plan, and I was in Sydney. I was 24. I was a very young mum. I had just gotten married and come from India, and I think within 6 months I was pregnant. So it wasn't planned. So there was no story, and just go with the flow kind of thing. So no, I don't have any specific story.
I think a lot of people, it's just like you get to that stage in your life, you're available and open to the possibility, and then it may or may not happen.
Correct, yeah.
And so what's the funniest parenting moment that you've had that your kids probably will never let you live down?
This one, my daughter actually told it at my 50th birthday and had everybody in hysterics. It was about 2012, I think, and I was really exhausted. My ex-husband and I had split by the time, and Damien was about 8. And Alicia had moved out, but she had come back for a week in my bedroom on the bed, and we're lying there, and Damien says to me, "Mom, what's for dinner?" And I said, "Oh, Damien, I'm so tired. Can we skip dinner tonight?" And Alicia jumps up, "Mom, that's neglect. That's a parental neglect." And I said, "Darling, I'm so tired. I just don't feel like cooking. Besides, neither of us look malnourished." Damien pops up and says, "Alicia, she said that to me last night as well." So I did. But I said, "Look, he looks okay. Besides, he can go and make a piece of toast if he wants."
Absolutely.
I'm tired. And I
Yes.
was, because I was dealing with divorce. I was dealing with paperwork, and I was just exhausted. I was perimenopausal at the time as well. So there was a lot going on for me, and I just couldn't
even
handle
if
everything.
Even if there's not a lot going on, it's just so unrelenting, the food
Yeah.
and the churning out. And so I find it very tiring, and I think that's a genius idea to be able to say it's probably not a bad thing. I've found other hacks over the course of the years as well, like Frozen Friday.
Yes.
Try to make it a bit sexy. Mexican Monday, which is just a bit of corn chips thrown together with whatever I can find.
Yeah.
And more recently, my son has opted to cook 3 nights a week.
Oh, that's amazing.
Game changer, because yeah, it is funny. So seems to be this sort of idea that if you're not serving up 3 very well-balanced nutritional meals a day, you're considered, maybe not the most top-shelf mum. And you're absolutely right. You can fry an egg, you can have some breakfast cereal for dinner. Goodness sake.
Fasting, unfortunately, wasn't a big deal at that time. It's fashionable.
You're ahead of your time. Let's just say that. What's the most shocking truth about motherhood, and has it shaped your sense of self?
I think we have this notion that as a mother, but it's not spoken about, but that there's something called the perfect mother, and I don't think there's ever a perfect mother. I don't think any of us mothers have ever got it 100% right all of the time. I've made so many mistakes in my life, Christine, and it's come back to bite me, like karma comes back to bite you, and your children will tell you, and sometimes I made mistakes. And I'm so sorry. But look, I've learned to have compassion for myself because of that, and be gentle on myself. And I did the best I could at the time with the circumstances that I had. But we don't do anything deliberately wrong. We make mistakes because of our mental health at the time, maybe, or whatever. But as long as we're 90% of the time, or 80%, even now I've got big expectations, but just having these high expectations of what it is to be fulfilling as a perfect mother all the time. And there is no such thing as a perfect mother.
And I think a lot of the work that I do as a psychologist is trying to debunk that myth, because there is no manual that helps like that to be intuitive, and there's this expectation that we are selfless. Self-neglect is almost something that's expected. And if we're operating from that space, then even with the best intentions, we're going to make mistakes. And even if we aren't neglecting ourselves, mistakes are inevitable. But it's kind of a beautiful part of parenting as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it allows us just to remember this mother role isn't fixed, and also beyond that, I'm still a woman. And as a woman, I was allowed to make mistakes. As a woman, I was allowed to show up some days disheveled and not put together in a particularly well. But once you become a mum, it's almost like there's this new branding with this weird belief that you now don't make mistakes. That self-compassion's wonderful. And maybe there's no other way to really learn it than to accept that we're flawed and be able to find that way to still love ourselves.
Yeah, and every child is different, Christine. So even if there was a manual, it wouldn't cut it.
Exactly.
You know
yes,
what I mean?
and every
So
circumstance is different. Manual would actually be a flop. Don't write the manual. What does finding the you and mum mean to you, and how do you practice it in your daily life?
So that's probably the biggest learning lesson of my life. Till I separated from my husband, which was 22 years, I was, as a good Indian wife, supported my husband in what he wanted to do. I lost myself completely.
Yes.
I honored my husband, I honored my children, my home, my garden, my parents and family and friends, But I forgot Carolyn. I actually lost her completely. And when I was in 2011, when we separated, I'm sitting there saying, what do I want to do with my life now? And I had no idea. I didn't know what I loved doing. I didn't know what I was passionate about. I had no idea. I was like a lost lamb.
Yes.
And I remember thinking to myself, what have I done? Here I've spent 22 years just being this so-called good wife. But I didn't know the you in mom. It was a big moment for me, and I'll get teary, but I was lucky to be in a good financial position. I took 3 years out of my life, 2010 to 2013, which is when I started that project.
Yes, I remember.
I worked with coaches. I did workshops. I did online listen to. I didn't have the confidence to go out and write a CV, because all I've ever done is worked in business. I've interviewed and hired many people, but I didn't have the confidence to go and work in a job because I've always been in business. So I was really lost. And after 3 years of doing a lot of work and soul searching, my ikigai, which is building community, but nobody pays you to build community. So there was another thing I had to navigate there. How do I earn an income out of this now? And I still haven't. But anyway, that goes down another path.
It's a different conversation, but isn't that wonderful?
I live my passion today. I love building community, but I do it in so many different ways. Yeah.
So I feel like what I heard in that especially was it's okay to be lost for a period of time. It's quite normal that we get in the trenches of our various roles, and it's interesting that you say that your culture sort of had an imprint on the expectations as well, in that, traditionally, as a young Indian woman, there's this mandate that you serve your family of origin, your husband, then your children, and then your home. And there's probably not a lot of suggestion around figuring out what inspires or excites you. So you had to almost, you were forced in some ways, I'm guessing, with the separation, but also once you were there in that space, you had to rewrite a lot of your conditioning.
Absolutely. And one of the things I decided was that I was not going to, because my daughter said, Mom, you're a great salesperson. You've been in business. Go and get a job for Strand, because we sold luggage. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. And what I had decided was that I'm only going to do something that I love doing. I had to love it.
Yes.
And I had no idea what it was, but that's what I knew. I had to love it.
So how long did it take you to figure out?
3 years.
3 years. 3 years of deep diving, almost to the exclusion of other activities.
I used to clean houses.
Yeah.
To get an income.
Yes.
Because I used to work for absolute domestics.
Yes.
I went and trained, and I had that little yellow Beetle, and I would drive around with my mop bucket and clean units in Kangaroo Point.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
And that's how I earned an income, but it gave me flexibility to find out what I loved doing, so yeah.
And that 3 years was well spent, because now you're doing this wonderful endeavour.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so what parts of you have you fought hardest to keep?
To stay with what I love doing now, because I guard it like that,
Yes.
Because I didn't have it for 22 years, and I know the most importantly, it has become alive. I've never felt more alive in my life. I mean, children, yes, of course, and all of that. But when you discover when it's making a difference in the world, there's another level of aliveness that happens inside of a human being, I think. And so that happened for me, and so yeah.
I think that's amazing, and just to feel that inspiration at any age. I mean, we're, I guess, a little bit more mature, and a lot of people probably think that they've had these epiphanies maybe in their later 20s or early 30s, and to be able to say, no, it actually can occur at any time where you realise, this is why I'm here, this is what makes me tick, this is what I want to be remembered for. So I think congratulations on finding that, Carolyn, while you've still got decades to enjoy it.
Thank you.
And make a lot from it.
And I love it. Most importantly.
So what's the most unexpected way motherhood has healed or transformed part of you?
So I got a little story with my son, and I suppose I always think that, you feel as a mother that you've got to know everything of how to raise your children, but I realized that I can learn from my children as well. And that was a big one for me. My son Damien, I had moved to Maruka, and one weekend we were renting a place in Maruka, and I had a fixed amount of income. I was not working still. I was still doing community. And toilet went busted. There was one toilet in the house and it busted on the weekend always. And I rang the plumber and I said, look, it's happened. And he says, look, if I come today, it'll cost you $280, but if I come on Monday, it'll be half. But he said, what you can do in the interim is turn the tap off every time you go to the toilet. So I said, okay, before we can do that. That's easy. So I said to Damien, I said, look, if we don't do that, it's going to flood this whole kitchen and then we'll be up for a lot more. So he said, Mom, I'll be fine. So anyway, he goes off to school and then I'm at home and then I did what I did and I went off. I come back at about 4 in the evening. He's come back before me. 3 o'clock, he's to come back by bus. And he sees the kitchen completely flooded because I left it open. Anyway, I come back at about 4 and I go straight to my bedroom, not realizing he's in his bedroom, which is closed, and he knows that I'm home. He comes to my bedroom and he says, Mom, I said, how are you, son? And he says, you know, you left the toilet thing open and the whole kitchen was flooded and it was a big mess. But anyway, I got all the towels from the laundry and I mopped it all up and it's all clean now. Just remember to close the tap, okay? And then he gently walks out and goes into his room, just like that, very calm, and he closed the door. I was him and him was me. I would have lost it.
Yes.
I would have lost it because it would have been a mess. And so what gives me the right as a parent, because I'm in a position of power, to yell and scream at my children? It was a huge lesson for me, Christine, that moment. Until today, even when Damien was living with me and he'd say he'd leave the sink in a mess, when I'm about to go and say it to him in a harsh way, I have to correct myself and say, son, can you please come and clean up the kitchen? You've forgotten to clean it up. I changed because I remember that lesson.
What a brilliant lesson.
That actually transformed my way of parenting.
Yes.
Not thinking that just because I'm mum and you are in a position of power as parent, that you can use that power. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Carolyn, it's even a gentle reminder for me because, and you can read all the books you like that remind you of that important point. But it's not until you've got a practical example like that where they're your teacher, where they're showing you a way to operate that is way more respectful, sophisticated, effective.
Absolutely.
Not releasing a whole heap of anger and cortisol needlessly in the space.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm still learning that.
Yeah, and how I also kind of compared it to if I was in my business and if I dare spoke to any of my employees like that, even if they made a small mistake, I'd be taken for, you just can't talk like that to anybody. So what gives me the right to talk to my child? And I've done it all my life. I've screamed and yelled and carried out.
Yeah, but
but that's what we do,
Yeah. And we're all a work in progress.
Correct, yeah.
And so I love the fact that the thing I heard in that too was the opportunity wasn't missed on you.
Yes.
You weren't in the flurry of, oh gosh, okay, so now I've got to get and wash the towels and I've got to get back to the plumber. And you could have just been in a little world of fix and doing, instead of taking the real message that was there to be had. And that is, he was extremely mature and showed you a really lovely way to share. And that would have been a pain for him. He got home from school, he was tired, and now suddenly he's mopping up water from the toilet.
Well, that much water
Absolutely.
in the
Using
kitchen.
and to be resourceful.
Yeah.
So I think that also is a bit of a testimony to your parenting, because
thank you.
you raised a son that had that calmness about him.
Yeah.
Which is just lovely, Carolyn.
Yeah. No.
So what do you think about the idea of mother guilt? Is it something that we should dismantle, or is it an inevitable part of motherhood?
I think it's an inevitable part of motherhood. At least I know, and I know lots of other women that I've spoken to, and I talk to a lot of women. Because we have such high standards for ourselves and what society expects us, and therefore we have our own. And when we don't fulfill on that, we just naturally feel guilty. I know I've felt that with all my children. If they're not doing something the right way, or I haven't spent, or they've gone down a wrong path, that's my fault. You know what I mean? So yes, it's definitely a inevitable part of motherhood.
And do you think that because you're sort of describing it to me like it's something innate, that once we have the kids, we just feel this overwhelming sense of duty and that the buck stops with us, essentially.
Yes.
If something goes wrong for them, we have to try to trace back what we've done to create it. So you would say that that's more an innate phenomenon rather than a construct that society has built, which has pushed us into an unrealistic expectation that we should feel bad if our kid isn't performing in a certain way, or if we're not thinking we're doing enough.
Yeah, I think it's more like it's a combination of both. It's, I think the ideas that we have about what it is to be a woman, what it is to be a mother, are passed down from generation to generation to generation. Generally, it's like you just pick it up, kind of thing. I used to compare myself to my mum and to my grandmothers, and I have very high regard for all of them, my mothers and grandmothers. And so I used to think, oh, I'm not that great a mum because I was busy fighting with my husband. I was in an emotionally abusive relationship for most of my 22 years. So it comes at a cost, and that is sometimes you can't always be there for your children when they need you most. Yeah, I used to compare, and I do think it's, you know what, I'll tell you a quick story, because once after we had split and I was moving from downstairs in the house, Damien, and we had that huge Queensland, and we were rattling around in it. And Kevin had taken Damien for dinner. He was 8, and I was alone downstairs, and I had moved everything out, all the furniture up with him. The only thing left to move up was my clothes. And I go down there and I start to move my clothes, and I see this box full of all letters and cards from Kevin when we were dating. Big mistake, opened it up, and I was a mess. I was just crying and then feeling guilt, and what have I done with my life? My family's broken down and all of this stuff. And anyway, I picked up the phone and spoke to my daughter, and I said, Alicia, and she says, Mom, are you okay? And she was in Moranbah at the time, and I said, no, this is what's happened. And she says, Mom, it's okay. You've been with Dad for 22 years. It's okay to cry. And she stayed with me on the phone for about 15 minutes. She said, I'm going now, but if you need me, call me. Before she left, I said, was I a good mom? Mom, you were the best. It's okay. Just take it easy and take a chill pill and call me if you need me. Hang up. And I wasn't happy. I picked up the phone to call Daniel, my other son. He hears me and he says, Sup, Mum? Sup is what's up. He was a skater. So I told him what I was dealing with, and he says, Mum, shit happens. Yeah. Move on with your life. I'm going now. I got to skate, okay? That was a 2-minute conversation. Clink. Then I go up. I said, abandon this project, and I go up to my bedroom, and half an hour later, Damien comes back, and he sees me all swollen-eyed and everything, and he says, be in the moment, Mummy. And I'm looking at him and I say, where did you get that from? And he says, I hear you talking about it a lot. And, you know, in that moment, I have my panel of counselors. I had one that tells me to feel my feelings, the other one that tells me to move on, and the third one says, now you can come back to the moment. I've been a good mum.
Yeah, check and mate. Yes.
So it was a big moment for me. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story, Carolyn. And isn't it lovely that you even intuitively knew that the healing would also happen by actually asking the ones that have the best position to have commentary. In fact, the only ones that really have the right
kids.
to have a comment on that. And, you know, it's interesting because of the idea of guilt as well. Like, mother guilt is, I remember when I had a friend who was a little ahead of the journey in terms of being a mum, and she once said, motherhood equals guilt. And I said to her, that is bleak and it cannot be true. And she said, just wait and see. And it was insidious how it would just creep into an ordinary day. You'd be thinking you've done all right, and then you'd be reminded of something you hadn't yet done, and then you'd be swamped with the guilt. So I've tried to look at guilt, and this is how I share guilt with people, is it's an opportunity to just survey the situation and decide if you want to do something different. And if you are satisfied that you want to continue doing what you're doing, then release the guilt and say, thanks for the little heads up, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
Or do something different and be removed from the guilt.
Correct.
And it sounds like you've been very on point with that as a mother, and realized more and more about, you know, the learnings, and then letting that reflect in how you parent. So that little bit of mother guilt doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. You're not reading our love letters.
Oh, I asked all 3 of them, was I a good mum? I wanted to hear that.
Yes,
you were, Mum.
Asking that. We're ready to hear the
truth of whatever they want to say.
Because kids can be scathing. When was a moment in motherhood when you felt completely lost, and how did you find your way back to yourself?
I was really lost in about 2015. It was just before I left Wollongab, actually. I was my older son, Daniel, he was probably the one that wore the brunt of our marriage breakdown from 15 to 17. was when we were having lots of fights at home and stuff, and so I couldn't. You're putting out fires. You can't give your time to this child who's going out skating, and he went on the wrong tracks and got into a bit of bad company, I suppose, and I kind of lost him, emotional connection with Daniel, and so my only talking to him was when he would come home, and if he hadn't done his chores in the house, it was, Daniel, why haven't you done you haven't made your bed, or you've left the sink in a mess. It was always correction or telling him what he should be doing, or giving him advice or whatever. And one day I realized, I said, I'm losing this boy because I'm hardly even spending any time with him. He was 17.
Yes.
And he happened to come home one morning and he was making breakfast, and I thought, oh, this is my chance. I'm going to sit with him. And I made breakfast and I sat at the table with him, and I just sat with him and I said, look, Daniel, I said, I want to have a better relationship with you. I don't know how to do it. What do I need to do? I was lost, and I thought the best person I could ask perhaps was him. And he says, Mom, he says, just be with me. And I'm saying, be with you? I said, you're never here. I said, you're either out skating or you're clubbing or you're working. You're in and out of the house in 5 minutes. How can I just be with you? And he says, Mom, he says, instead of telling me what I should and shouldn't be doing and giving me advice and telling me how I could do things better, just be with me. I'm still so confused. I don't know what he meant by that. And he looked on my face and he says, so how was your day, Mum, yesterday?
I'll show you how to do this.
Yeah. And I told him, and he says, and how was it today? Have you got anything planned for today? And I told him, and he said, have you been dating anyone? And I said, and then I twigged on. So then I asked him, oh, how was your day, Daniel? And we had this lovely conversation, and he basically taught me how to connect and be a mother with him, which I had completely, and so I found my way back to, I've got the most amazing connection with him now, and it helped me be with my other children in the same way, because as a mother I've done so much self-development through my journey that we tend to advise more and talk more.
Yes, I think that's again wired into us, that if we see them in pain, our automatic default is, how can I solve this, or what solution is there? And we do tend to focus on that, or trying to bring up healthy little citizens. So if they've got chores to do and they haven't done it, it's not so much about the value that's being missed, or and while that has a really important place, I totally hear what he was asking for, and what is so hard as a mum to sit with, and that's just
hang with me, he says.
Just hang. Yep.
And there's a whole book on it which I read later called Hold On to Your Kids by Gabor Mate, and wonderful. I think he talks about this concept called attachment parenting, and he says if you just connect with your child on a regular basis, you won't need to correct them. They'll just naturally copy what you're doing.
Which is really, it's difficult, especially when I'm a very impatient person. I'm working on that. That's always one of my New Year's resolutions, to be more patient. And when you can see this dilemma and there's a really obvious solution, you just want to keep hammering it into them.
Correct. They'll come to you and ask you for advice. You won't be giving them anything. They'll come to you for help and support.
What a lovely moment that is.
Yeah.
What decision as a mum have other mothers potentially disagreed with, but you knew that it was right for your family?
For my family or for me?
Or for you, yeah.
For me?
Yeah.
Because for my family is a different story, and for me is a different story. But for me, I suppose, like when I discovered what I loved doing, which was building community and anything to do with that, it was 2017, and my daughter had just gotten pregnant with her first baby, and she came to me and she said, my mother-in-law is after the baby 2 days. Will you look after the baby 2 days? And I tell you what, it was the hardest thing for me to do, Christine, to say to her, no, I can't. And she says, why not? And I said, because for the first time in my life, I've discovered what I want to do with my life. And I've discovered what I love doing and what I'm passionate about. And I want to support you and I will support you, but I can't block out 2 full days to look after your baby. And I'll love him as much as and I'll let you, I'll help you when you go on dates. You drop him here for ad hoc, half a day, I'll take him out. And I did. I used to do lots of things, and I still do. But it was a hard one, because most grandmothers today and grandparents look after their children's children, and I don't. I do look after them, but not fixed, not like a daycare center kind of thing.
Yep, and I just love that. And I think that you've just opened up a topic that a lot of women probably wrestle with, because you hear so many people, I do anyway, them saying, I can't wait to be a grandmother. I'm a grandmother now. I'm so excited by that. And yes, I'm going to look after the baby during these times. And I've often wondered, even myself, when that day arrives, how will I feel about being, beholden and locked in, which again is forfeiting yourself and leaning back into that maternal role, which of course, we've got capacity for, but it's how much and at what cost. So
correct.
I love the fact Carolyn said, I can give you so much, but it's going to look different from what you've asked.
Correct.
Because I can't be contained in this way because of the decades where I wasn't listening to my needs. I wasn't able to even remotely dance to the beat of my own drum. I've just found it. I've just got my drum. I got my little drumsticks and I just can't walk away from it. How did she receive that?
That's a good question. At first she was a little upset, but Alicia is such a mature young woman, and then she understood and she said, I get it, Mom, I understand. She lives 2 streets away from me, so she's very blessed because the kids can cycle down to my place and they're in and out of my house whenever they've got the code on my house, so they come and go when they want. And she's fine with it now, but she wasn't immediately at the time. Yeah.
So even though you sliced
and that's
and
a
diced
natural thing, I suppose, because she wanted me in they want you in their life, and who best to look after their child rather than a daycare center?
Absolutely, but also I know that it's also logistics. It suited her, as
absolutely,
well, to have it in that format, and it was very brave of you to be able to, know that it was probably going to be a difficult conversation.
It was very difficult conversation, and difficult for me.
Yeah, and not only that, it could have really compromised your relationship for a period of time.
Absolutely.
It could have been one of those situations where, it becomes a lot to resolve. So I think it's marvellous. We're willing to back yourself to that extent. That you were like, this is my time. I've got to take it. I think a lot of women struggle. They think, I'll get back to that. I've discovered my passion. I'll just put it on ice and now I'll tend to this need of my children. And I think from my experience, those needs are ongoing.
Yes.
It's not just about looking after the kids before they go to school. It's then about pick up and drop off at school. And the list goes on, and it's beautiful, but you've got to know where your boundaries are and what you need to maintain your individuality.
Yeah, I think at the time, I can't remember, or 54 or something. And you don't have the same energy as you had when you're 24, so you're looking after a baby. It's not the same. But your children don't understand that you've got half that energy. You're twice their age. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's not as easy as they think it is.
Well, it's harder for them because you look so young and sprightly. You're part of the problem, you just look good, and they're thinking, Mum, you look agile. Get up. I know, that's one of my big dreads when I do become a grandparent, because I just don't know if I can go back to the broken sleep.
Yes.
And I'm like, is there any way I can offer up my services but just have this hard rule? And I'm thinking that's going to be tricky with sleepovers, but I'm going to try to find a way. Who inspires you, or what inspires you to stay true to yourself?
I had read a quote by a Zen Buddhist monk called Robert Thurman, his name was, and he said, don't ask what needs and do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And that I've never forgotten that. And when I started doing community work, and I felt like I felt a different woman, and I thought, I want that feeling for the rest of my life. It can't, and that's what I'm going to do. And so I've always, whenever I'm tempted to go off track, remember that my aliveness as a woman is in itself a contribution to the world, because everyone I interact with then gets a little bit of that. Bang, you made a difference. You don't need to go anywhere. Just do what you love doing and come alive by doing that. And you'll make a difference wherever you go, and you'll inspire others to do the same. So
you inspire me, even just hearing that, and just the fact that, it's quite profound how you found that. I think people would be almost envious that you found it, and it's an invitation, I guess, to all mothers and women to not give up. Like to stay on that pursuit of figuring out what is it that ignites you, what is it that you can do, and time flies and you can't even believe that this many hours has been, chewed up, because those moments are, I guess, the indicators of what you're supposed to be doing in life.
Absolutely. That's I couldn't agree more.
And it's beautiful that you talked about that quote. It also reminds me of like was it Gandhi that said, be the change you want to see in the world?
Yeah.
Like rather than going out and trying to plug a need or read a list of things.
Causes.
Just go inward, and whatever can make you feel like you're doing something that's truly purposeful. It's contagious, and not only are you helping others, but you're also letting people be part of something that's uplifting and positive. And even if it's just interacting with you at the supermarket, it would be beneficial, I should imagine.
I feel that. I feel I make a difference hanging with people because I've never felt so passionate in my life, Christine. There's another quote that actually, when I was working on those 3 years of discovering what I was passionate about, that stuck with me. It's by Rumi, the 12th century mystic poet. And he says, there's a candle in your heart waiting to be lit. There's a void in your soul waiting to be filled. You feel it, don't you? And that, I said, yes, I feel it, but I don't know what it is.
That's beautiful.
And that was what kept me going,
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm really happy for you, and I'm happy for us because you're part of our community, the greater community, only a few suburbs away.
Yes.
I will definitely be coming. I'll be stalking you.
You'll have to come to my neighbour gathering on the 31st.
Trust me, I will be there. And so finally, what is one small actionable tip that you can suggest to mums today so that they can stay connected to themselves?
So in 55 years old, I discovered something called goddess time. And I think every woman has a goddess within her of some, you're a goddess, and so it's important to allocate whether it's 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week. I have a full day. I call it Goddess Day. I have to make up for lost time, right?
No, I love it. I do the same for my birthday. It takes a month.
But it's an ongoing thing every week, and I look forward to it, and I spend the day having a massage, or I'll do my nails, or I'll connect with a friend, go out for lunch. If I can't get a friend to catch up with, I'll go and treat myself out to something. I'll do anything that'll nurture me and make me move from a state of doing all the time to a state of being all the time. And I think the feminine needs to be more relaxed in being, and we're in a world where we're always doing stuff and we're so motivated to do. And especially me, I'm so excited about my life that I'm always doing stuff, but that Goddess Day helps me just relax into my feminine and just remember that the doing will come from the state of being, if that makes sense.
The quality of the doing will be way better.
Correct, will come, is determined by the quality of the being. You're dead right.
So true. And I think that that's another thing that we can get better at. I love Goddess Day. I love, Goddess Hour or evening, or just that, incorporating and weaving it in to your repertoire so that it becomes part of a routine, whether it's daily or weekly. I don't think it should be much more than weekly, maybe monthly if it was a big parcel of time. But just that opportunity of just sitting still and saying, what would fill my cup this week?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
Is it a massage this time, or is it just to snuggle up and read my book?
Yeah.
And just getting in tune with yourself, I feel helps us to be able to go a bit slower as well.
Yeah, that would be my number one thing to do. And sometimes if I'm eating alone, I'll always light a candle and eat quietly and not with my phone, or just do things really slowly. Yeah.
Yes, sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. It's been wonderful, and great questions, by the way.
Oh, look, I love this. A bit like you, I'd found that in all my work, I kept circling back to mums and relating to that struggle with figuring out who you are while still honouring the blessed role of being a mum.
Yeah.
And the people I get to interview to explore that, it's so inspirational. And I think, Carolyn, a lot of people will get so much from what you've shared today. So thank you once again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
See you.